А он на врави гагавел, я заглом взразился, а коневера на суба застояла. A folio fork in hand, expecting just another family meal. Only for my parents to pull out a brightly colored book with my sister's name printed across the cover in bold letters. They smiled proudly, announcing that she had written a cookbook, but as I slipped through the glossy pages, my blood ran cold. Every recipe, every note, every detail, they were mine, stolen straight from my journals, from the hours I spent tasting, failing, and finally perfecting dishes that carried my sweat, my passion, and my dreams. And there they were, paraded as my sister's achievements, with my parents clapping like it was the proudest moment of their lives. Imagine sitting there while your life's working unveiled in front of you, stripped of your name, your effort, your identity. The room grew smaller as I realized this wasn't just a mistake, it was a betrayal. They all knew how much cooking meant to me. They knew it was more than food, it was the way I expressed love, the way I built a future. Yet here it was, packaged and presented as if I didn't exist. I felt 1,000 emotions at once. Rage that my parents could smile while erasing me. Shock that my sister would dare to steal from me, not just a recipe or two, but everything. And beneath it all, a hollow ache that whispered the ugliest question. Was I ever respected in this family, or was I only ever seen as someone to be used? As I stared at the book, I saw not just recipes, but memories. The bread I perfected for 3 months, trying again and again, until the crust sank when you cut into it. The soup I created when I was broke, stretching cheap vegetables into something that warmed me through winters. The pie that became my signature dish at every holiday, with my friends begging for the recipe, but I never gave it away. And now here it was, listed on page 53, titled with a fake story about how my sister had come up with it one rainy afternoon. Lies printed in ink, bound and sold. I looked around the table, waiting, hoping for someone to say something, to notice the tension burning in my silence. But my parents beamed as if they had handed me a gift. My sister sat taller, flipping her hair, thanking them for their support. And in that moment, the weight of truth crushed me. They didn't care. They had chosen her, not me. My work meant nothing if it didn't serve their favorite child. Have you ever been erased in real time? It's a strange kind of pain. It doesn't scream, it suffocates. My hands shook under the table as I thought about all the nights I stayed up, sketching recipes, tasting sauces, chasing perfection. I wasn't just robbed of credit, I was robbed of pieces of myself. What would you do if your family betrayed you like that? Would you swallow the hurt, stay quiet to keep the peace, or would you fight to reclaim what's yours? That night, the answer began to burn inside me, like a fire. My sister talked about her plans, how she was going to market herself as a chef, maybe open a YouTube channel, maybe even launch her own restaurant someday. Every word was stolen oxygen, and my parents, eyes shining, promised to help her. They offered money, connections, everything they had never offered me. They told her she had talent. Talent? She didn't even cook. Half the time she couldn't boil pasta without calling me in frustration. But suddenly she was a star, and I was the invisible shadow sitting at the same table. And that's when it hit me. The cookbook wasn't just plagiarism, it was a declaration. They weren't just ignoring me, they were replacing me, erasing me. And if I stayed silent, I would vanish entirely. That night I didn't sleep. I lay awake flipping through memories as if they were torn pages. The kitchen where I first learned to knead dough. The notebook where I scribbled sauces until the paper wrinkled from stains. The little victories that kept me going. I thought about my future, the dreams I nurtured quietly, dreams my family just handed over to someone who didn't earn them. The betrayal cut deeper because it wasn't just about recipes, it was about identity. Cooking wasn't a hobby for me, it was my art, my calling, the things that kept me alive when life had nothing else to give. And they had taken it, slapped another name on it, and called it success. The next day, I started gathering evidence. Old journals, files on my computer, timestamps of recipes I had uploaded to private drives years ago. Even photos of dishes I had posted online long before my sister ever thought about food beyond ordering takeout. My mind shifted from hurt to strategy. If they wanted to pretend I didn't exist, I would make sure the world knew the truth.
But even as I prepared, a part of me wrestled with guilt. This was my family. Did I really want to expose them? Did I want to humiliate my sister publicly? But then I asked myself, hadn't they already humiliated me? Hadn't they already declared at the dinner table that my work, my soul, was disposable? That was the real betrayal, not my fight for justice, but their silence in the face of theft. And here's something no one tells you. Betrayal isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet approval of someone else's lie. Sometimes it's applause at your expense. And sometimes it's a family dinner where your life is served on a silver platter with someone else's name on it. I realized then that silence was complicity. If I didn't fight back, I was agreeing with them. I was telling the world that I was invisible. And I refused. So I planned my next move. And I'll tell you, revenge when it's born from truth doesn't taste bitter. It tastes like justice, slow-cooked and simmering until the right moment. Because when my sister stepped into the spotlight, ready to bask in stolen glory, she had no idea that the foundation beneath her was about to collapse. And that's where the story truly begins.
The day of her big launch came faster than I expected. My parents hosted a gathering at a local community hall, proud to present my sister's debut as a chef. There were banners, food samples laid out on tables, and stacks of her glossy cookbooks for sale. I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching people line up, tasting dishes she hadn't even cooked herself. My stomach churned with rage and grief, but underneath, there was also a steel-like calm, because unlike them, I knew the truth, and I knew how to reveal it. My sister took the stage, radiant in a borrowed chef's coat she had never earned. She spoke about her journey, about discovering the joy of cooking. Every word was a lie. I looked around at the clapping hands, the nodding heads, and thought, they are applauding me, but they don't even know it. My recipes were being praised, my work admired, but under the wrong name. Then came the moment I had prepared for. My parents announced that they were investing in her dream, that they wanted everyone to support her cookbook, her supposed talent. And when my sister raised her hand to thank them, basking in their attention, I stepped forward. The room quieted as I spoke. My voice didn't shake. I had rehearsed this moment in my head 100 times. I told them the truth, that every recipe in that book was mine, that I had years of journals, drafts, photos, files, proof that each dish was created by me, perfected by me, long before my sister claimed them. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My parents froze. My sister's smile cracked. She tried to laugh it off, to say I was being dramatic, jealous, bitter, but then I pulled out my evidence. Pages of recipes dated and signed, screenshots of uploads, even old social media posts. The room turned again. Whispers grew louder. People started comparing her stories with my proof. And suddenly, the applause shifted into suspicion. Have you ever seen someone's mask slip in front of everyone? My sister's voice cracked as she insisted she was the real creator. But the more she spoke, the more people saw the cracks. She couldn't even explain how certain dishes were made. When someone asked her to demonstrate a simple technique, she stumbled, revealing what I already knew. She couldn't cook, not really. My parents rushed to defend her, accusing me of trying to sabotage her success. But it was too late. The truth was out. The people who had come to support her weren't blind. They saw the arrogance, the lies, the collapse of her carefully crafted image. That night, the launch ended in chaos. Guests left with whispers, my sister fled in tears, and my parents glared at me as if I had committed a crime. But I didn't feel guilt. For the first time in years, I felt free. My voice had been heard. My work had been reclaimed. The days that followed were messy. My parents stopped talking to me, siding with my sister. They accused me of humiliating her, of destroying the family's dream. But what dream was it really? A dream built on theft, on betrayal, on my silence? That wasn't a dream. It was a prison, and I had broken free. But here's the thing. When betrayal comes from strangers, it stings. When it comes from family, it scars. I had to face the painful truth that my parents never truly saw me on my own. They only saw what I could give, what they could take. My sister was their star, and I was the fuel to keep her shining. It hurt, it broke something inside me, but it also taught me the most valuable lesson of my life: that family is not always blood, that loyalty is not always given back, that sometimes, to honor yourself, you must walk away from those who choose to erase you. So I did. I stopped seeking their approval. I stopped waiting for their recognition. I poured my energy back into my own work, my own vision. And without the weight of their judgment, something incredible happened. I thrived. I started sharing my recipes online, this time under my own name. Slowly, people noticed. My food found an audience. Not through a stolen book, not through a fabricated story, but through authenticity. And that authenticity resonated more than any lie ever could. And you know what? Success tasted sweeter because it was mine. Every step, every dish, every story, mine. My sister faded into silence, her cookbook forgotten, her reputation tarnished. My parents still refused to admit the truth, but it no longer mattered. I had stopped needing them to see me because I had finally learned to see myself. Sometimes, the deepest betrayal can become the sharpest clarity. It strips away illusions, forces you to confront the truth, and gives you the strength to stand on your own. And when you do, you realize that no amount of stolen credit can take away what's truly yours: your passion, your identity, your voice. So I did. I stopped seeking their approval. I stopped waiting for their recognition. I poured my energy back into my own work, my own vision. And without the weight of their judgment, something incredible happened. I thrived. I started sharing my recipes online, this time under my own name. Slowly, people noticed. My food found an audience. Not through a stolen book, not through a fabricated story, but through authenticity. And that authenticity resonated more than any lie ever could. And you know what? Success tasted sweeter because it was mine. Every step, every dish, every story, mine. My sister faded into silence, her cookbook forgotten, her reputation tarnished. My parents still refused to admit the truth, but it no longer mattered. I had stopped needing them to see me because I had finally learned to see myself. Sometimes, the deepest betrayal can become the sharpest clarity. It strips away illusions, forces you to confront the truth, and gives you the strength to stand on your own. And when you do, you realize that no amount of stolen credit can take away what's truly yours: your passion, your identity, your voice. So, as for me, I never touched that cookbook again, but I still cook every day. And every dish I make is a reminder that I survived their betrayal, I reclaimed my voice, and I will never let anyone erase me again. Because in the end, the truest recipe for strength is this: betrayal may break you, but rising from it will define you. Subscribe for more stories like this, because sometimes the truth is even more powerful than fiction.